What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Cinematic Reviews. I, of course, am your host, Chris, and this is a show about all things movie and TV. I got another Marvel-filled episode for you today. We're going to be going over some news and reactions in the Marvel Universe, along with our featured film today, Daredevil, starring Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner. And then I'll be ranking some of the characters in the Daredevil universe. So, to kick today's episode off, let's head over to news and reactions. So the biggest news to hit the Marvel Universe so far is the cast list has been announced for Avengers Doomsday, which is the next Avengers film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You've probably seen that video circulating the internet with Robert Downey standing next to a long line of casting chairs with each cast member's name on the back. Marvel and Disney have confirmed that there's more casting to be announced, that this is only a sneak peek at all the cast members that are going to be involved with Avengers Doomsday. Robert Downey, of course, is going to be playing Doctor Doom, the main villain in the story. It was also revealed that actors like Chris Hemsworth, who has played Thor, Tom Hiddleston, who is Loki in the universe, they're going to be returning, along with some of the old X-Men characters like Sir Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, James Marsden's coming back as Cyclops, and a bunch of other cast from previous Marvel films will be joining this universe, along with Anthony Mackie, who is the latest Captain America. So production is starting right now. It's assumed that Tom Holland will join the cast as well as Spider-Man. It's been rumored that maybe She-Hulk is coming back, or Mark Ruffalo as Hulk will be returning. But for right now, that little video that's been circling the internet is all we have right now as confirmed cast members for the next Avengers film, which is slated to come out next year in May. So that's super, super exciting to see Robert Downey kind of switch over from, the iconic Iron Man character in the first part of the MCU to now being one of the biggest villains in Marvel comic book history. So super exciting news, and look forward to more casting announcements for that film. It's going to be a huge film. That one and Secret Wars will be coming out the following year, which will kind of like recap this whole multiverse saga. And then we're going to move on to the mutant saga in the MCU. Some other news coming up, cinematic reviews related. So since Daredevil Born Again is filming right now on Disney Plus, that'll be going on for 9 episodes ending on April 15th. So in the meantime, I'm going to be doing a double feature to kind of fill in the gap before I do the review for Daredevil Born Again. And that I can announce will be Gladiator and Gladiator 2. I'll be reviewing both of those films in that little small gap before the review episode drops for Daredevil Born Again. So once all 9 episodes have been aired on Disney Plus, and I'll give my full spoiler-filled review on that TV series. Speaking of that TV series, so far we're on episode, I want to say 6. I'm really loving it. It's probably going to be one of my favorite Marvel-related series to hit Disney Plus. It's right up there with Hawkeye and WandaVision. Right now, we're kind of in the midst of Daredevil kind of wrestling with should he put on the horns again, so he just leave it to the cops and kind of focus on the law thing. So it's a lot of decision making and kind of like soul searching for Charlie Cox's Matt Murdock right now. But I'm not going to get into too many details, but there's a big event that happens in the first episode of the series that kind of spirals into this huge decision that Matt Murdock kind of wrestles with throughout the series. And coming in towards the end of the series, it sounds like he's probably going to be born again, so to speak, as the title suggests. He will be putting those horns back on. This latest episode, we did see that he has the suit on and he is back and doing his Daredevil thing. So that's really exciting. I really love the show. We've had a bunch of different special characters kind of pop in and out of the series every week. It was rumored and then eventually confirmed by trailers that John Bernthal will be returning as Frank Castle, which he did. I believe that was last 2 weeks prior. He was in that episode, along with some other surprising characters that have been popping up. And I'm excited to talk about that show when I do my review here in the coming weeks once all 9 of those episodes drop. And then another episode that'll be coming to the show, that will be the rewatch of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This year is the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith, which will be premiering in the theaters once again, coming on April 28th. So I'll be heading to the theater to watch that movie, and then I'll be doing a rewatch review for Revenge of the Sith on Star Wars Day, May 4th. That is when that episode will drop. So keep an eye out for that on YouTube, Spotify, and all the other podcasting listening services that you subscribe to. So that's today's news and reactions. Let's head over to our featured film, Daredevil. So, like I said, today's featured film is Daredevil, starring Ben Affleck, Jennifer Garner, Michael Clark Duncan, Colin Farrell, and a bunch of other names like Jon Favreau, who I absolutely love in this film. The film was released back in February 14th, 2003. It was directed by, let me look up here, Mark Steven Johnson, who I'm not too familiar with. Let me look to see his filmography. Oh, he also did the screenplay for Ghost Rider, which we will probably be doing on the show as well. He also did films like Christopher Robin and a few other. Oh, he did Elektra as well, which makes sense because Elektra is a huge part in this film, played by the lovely Jennifer Garner. So yeah, this film was a big part of my childhood. Back in 2003, we didn't have a whole lot of superhero films like we do now. I mean, we had Michael Keaton's Batman, we had Christopher Reeves as Superman, we had Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, we had the X-Men come in with Hugh Jackman and James Marsden, Halle Berry, and all those. And then, of course, we had Blade, but not a huge list of superhero movies like we do now. I mean, we have like an unlimited supply of superhero movies right now in 2025. But back in 2003, superhero movies weren't really a huge thing. They were actually kind of looked upon as kind of like the little brother of Hollywood. Not many people were like scrambling to make superhero movies. But then once, Christopher Nolan's Batman came out, a couple of years later in 2005, that kind of like shook up the superhero genre. And then eventually we had, Iron Man come out in 2008, which kickstarted this whole Marvel Cinematic Universe phase. But back in 2003, I mean, like I said, we had Spider-Man, we had X-Men, we had Blade, and then, of course, we had Daredevil by Ben Affleck, who is not great. I remember this film being a lot more fun as a kid. Now, with me being, in my 30s, it's a really bad movie. I mean, the CGI is very poor. It's very early 2000s, but I don't even remember like Spider-Man being this bad. And maybe that says to like the production of it, to the budget of it. Daredevil is not really like A-tiered superhero like Spider-Man and X-Men and Superman is. So I mean, it very shows the amount of energy and work that went into this film. Ben Affleck at the time, he was coming off of Good Will Hunting, winning the Oscar for the screenplay. This is right before he does, Gone Girl, and then some of the other rom-coms that he does. So this is, and he, like, maybe not a lot of people know, like, he is a huge comic book nerd. That is what, attracted him to the role, and then eventually attracted him to the role of Batman, who I absolutely love. He's my favorite Batman. But this film definitely doesn't do him justice as far as his acting chops. I actually think Ben Affleck is a really good actor. He's one of my favorite actors to watch, as well as director. He would go on to direct movies like Argo and The Town, which I absolutely love. But yeah, this movie doesn't really do him justice, or does the Daredevil Matt Murdock character justice. That comes later when Netflix gets their hands on it and does that Daredevil series, which I will talk about more next week. But just to kind of compare it a little bit, Charlie Cox is like the ideal person to play Daredevil, as well as Matt Murdock. I mean, Ben Affleck did the best he could with what the script they had, but it's just, this movie is just really bad. The action sequences are okay. There's a few fights in there that are pretty cool. Like when he fights Jennifer Garner, you can tell that they really practice that, the hand to hand combat in person. Um, all the stuff that Bullseye is doing in here is really ridiculous. I mean, I love Colin Farrell. He is a tremendous actor, but this has got to be rock bottom for him in his career. He's got the shaved head. He's got the big bullseye on his forehead that's kind of like scarred into his head. Like, basically shoving it in your face like this is Bullseye. Like, I mean, it's really on the nose. um Bullseye shows up again in the Netflix series, which I think is better character wise. But this is just a bad movie through and through. Not a whole lot of great things out of it. You can tell that this is when Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner started having their off-screen romance where they eventually get married and then unfortunately they get divorced later on. But this kind of like sparks their romance in the real world outside of this movie. Kind of starts on this set here. They have great chemistry. You can tell that they work were casted, based on each other. I don't know for sure who was casted first. I would assume Ben Affleck was casted first, and then did screen testings with various female actors, and then they landed on Jennifer Garner because of their chemistry. And that's one of the few things I can say about this movie, that they do have some chemistry with each other. Which is important because Elektra is a huge character in Daredevil's life. Is a huge character in this movie, so you kind of have to nail it. Which I think they did the best that they could. I don't at all blame the cast for this movie. This is coming from the studio, the screenplay, the budget, the limited CGI power that they probably had at the time. But they did the best they could, and it's still a bad movie. Actually, I think Jennifer Garner, kind of skipping ahead to the ranking segment later on, I actually like Jennifer Garner as Elektra better than the gal that plays her in the Netflix series, season 2 of Daredevil. I mean, she's great in there. She does the fighting, but I don't know. I'd really like Jennifer Garner a lot as Elektra, and it's really cool that she comes back in Deadpool and Wolverine that we saw last summer, where she reprised her role as Elektra in there. And there's rumors that she could come back in an Avengers movie like Secret Wars. So very exciting. Colin Farrell, like I said, really over the top Bullseye. Don't really care for it. Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin, I actually kind of like. Rest in peace to him. Um, he was a great actor. I actually liked him as Kingpin in this movie. Really he had the presence of King, how Kingpin is supposed to be. It's just unfortunate that then we get Vincent D'Onofrio, who just absolutely kills the character in the Daredevil series. He loves the character, but for the time, Michael Clark Duncan, I think, did a great job, at least with what he was given, script wise, and he. I guess if I remember right, he did do some research, on the character. Um, but yeah, he did the best he could. Jon Favreau, who has been a huge presence in Disney. This is back in his acting days where he did, Elf and some other movies. I'm trying to remember the one that he did. Was it Swingers? He did Swingers before this. But this is kind of like early 2000 Favreau, where he was in his acting phase before he jumps over to story writer and director. But he's really good in here. He plays Foggy Nelson. He brings that humor and charm that Favreau always does to the film. He was great in there. Joe Pantoliano. I totally butchered that name. Joe Pantoliano. Sorry about that. Who's a big, that guy in the Hollywood world. He plays Ben Urich, the reporter that kind of tries to crack open the Daredevil case. We get a lot of Ben Urich in the Netflix series as well. But Joe does a decent job as well. I love him. He's the captain in Bad Boys. He was in The Matrix, a bunch of other films as kind of that guy. But he was fine in here. He did what he needed to do. It was a small role, but still love the guy as an actor. The big thing I remember the most about this film is, of course, the soundtrack. The soundtrack is very early 2000s. This is actually where the hit song, what was it? Bring Me to Life by Evidence, was just a huge hit when this movie came out. Everybody had it on the radio. Everybody downloaded it on their MP3 players. They had the CDs of it. Like this movie rides on the soundtrack, and particularly that song is what I remember most from this film. You get that fight between Jennifer Gardner and Ben Affleck at the end of the film, where they sort of meet each other on the rooftop and it's raining. But before that, we get them, training in separate areas. They're suiting up, and you get this song just rolling through, and then eventually Bullseye shows up, and everything just goes to chaos. But the soundtrack for sure is what I remember most about this film, particularly "Bring Me to Life," which I still love today. I love throwing that song on once in a while just for kind of reminiscing back in the early 2000s. And then the one thing I wanted to bring up as well is the huge plot hole that I have really a big issue with. I had an issue with it when it came out, and I still do rewatching it for today's pod. And that's the fact that that whole fight that I was talking about between Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck at the end of the movie makes no sense. So if you remember, Elektra's father gets killed by Bullseye after that big old party that they went to. They're fighting in the street. You got Daredevil versus Bullseye, and then you have Bullseye grabbing Daredevil's stick, launching it out into I think it's Nicholas Nachios is her father's name, and then stabbing him in the heart with Daredevil's stick. But they have Jennifer Garner blame Daredevil for her father's death, even though she saw Bullseye throw the stick. But I guess they really needed to somehow get the reveal that Ben Affleck was Daredevil to her. We needed them to fight each other. It just doesn't make sense because you can clearly see her watching Bullseye throw the stick at her dad and Daredevil trying to catch the stick in order to prevent it from hitting Nicholas Nachios. I just don't understand why the screenwriters thought that'd be a good idea. Like, oh, they were reading this, they wrote it, and they're like, oh, that's good enough. We'll just explain it later by just having them fight on a rooftop, and because we want this big reveal of Jennifer Garner figuring out that Daredevil is actually Matt Murdock, her boyfriend who she's been dating. It's just the writing in this movie is just really bad, and that's the one example that I have that really cements the fact that the writers just kind of half-assed this thing. They didn't take the time to actually think through and give us a compelling story. They just kind of like, let's half-ass the story. Let's just get to the cool action and build the movie on the action. And that sums up every early 2000s superhero movie where they kind of half-ass the story, and they just want the big budget fighting or the semi big budget CGI. They don't really care about the story nowadays. With Marvel, they try their best to, at least in the early phases of the MCU, they try to give us compelling stories like the Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. But now we're kind of spiraling back to that where they give us half-ass stories and just kind of throw in characters that people love and just ride that instead of actually focusing on the plot, on does this story make sense from start, middle to finish. And Daredevil, another clear example of the lazy writing back in the early 2000s with these superhero movies. The one that probably did it the best was probably the Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man's, I think. X-Men had its moments, but I think back in that time, Spider-Man, particularly Spider-Man 2, I think had one of the better writings, superhero movie-wise. And then eventually, we get Fantastic Four, which is fine. That one's kind of built more on, the big name actors that they got in the movie as the Fantastic Four. But yeah, so all in all, this Daredevil, still watch it, if you've never seen it before, and you want to kind of explore, the pre-MCU Marvel movies. By all means, go check this out. Go check out the Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire. Check out the Fantastic Four movies with Chris Evans. Blade is a really good one. That was back in the 90s. I think that was the first Marvel movie pretty much made. And then we get Ghost Rider and some of these other characters. But check it out. Maybe if you like it, more power to you. Like I said at the beginning, this movie was really aimed for kids my age at the time where we just want to see superheroes fly around on buildings and fight each other. We don't really focus on, story and plot and does this make sense from start, middle to finish. But now with me being a podcast reviewer and being in my 30s and thousands upon thousands of movies that I've watched, I really come in here with a critical eye more. And this is just a really, really bad film. Uh, Starting off with the writing, which is the biggest part, and then the terrible CGI and the okay acting from the cast. Like I keep saying, they did the best they had. They have the script. Maybe Ben Affleck had some input on it because he helped write Good Will Hunting, which won an Oscar for screenplay. But this is just a victim of the early 2000 superhero genre. Whereas now with the Netflix series, they've really kind of spearheaded, let's give them good action, let's give them a good story, let's cast the right actors that can really embody those characters that we've grown to love through the comics. So this movie kind of walked so that the Netflix show could run, and I'm really thankful for this movie because without this movie, we wouldn't have gotten, Charlie Cox as Daredevil or Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, John Bernthal as Punisher, So check out this film. For me, out of 10 stars, I think I gave this like a 3, just because the soundtrack is so nostalgic, and Jennifer Garner is actually decent as Elektra. The fighting there's a few fighting moments like Bullseye and Daredevil in the church is kind of ridiculous. They're bouncing around on the organ, but I think the fight between Garner and Affleck is pretty fun to watch. First, when they fight in front of the kids, that's kind of silly and fun. And then when they get to the end of the film where it's revealed that Daredevil is actually Matt Murdock and they're fighting in the rain, it's pretty cool. You can tell that they really tried to train their bodies and to get those stunt works right without using a stunt double as much as they want. So check out Daredevil. I can't think of any streaming services. Disney Plus might have it. They've been kind of compiling all these older Marvel films into their archives. But go check it out on Apple or Fandango at home or Amazon. You can purchase on there, I'm sure, for cheap. But check out Disney Plus to see if it's on there. It might be on there. Like I said, they've been kind of slowly compiling all these pre-MCU Marvel films just to kind of build up their library. So to wrap up today's episode, let's head over to some rankings. So just like last week on the Hulk episode, I'm going to rank some characters in the Daredevil universe since we've only had the one Daredevil movie and then now the Daredevil series. Doesn't really make much point in ranking those, even though I would rank the Netflix / Disney Plus show way above the Daredevil movie. But to kind of change it up a little bit, we're going to do like we did last time and rank some characters. So we're going to rank the Daredevils / Matt Murdocks, the Kingpins, the Elektras, and then the Bullseyes that we've had so far. So kicking off with the main event, we have Daredevil / Matt Murdock. And number one, of course, it's Charlie Cox. He just embodies the character so much. He brings something fresh and new to the character, as well as paying homage to the character from the comics that we've grown up to love. And then at number two, we have Ben Affleck, who gave us his best shot, but definitely not the role for him. He was much, much better as Batman, I think, in my opinion. But Charlie Cox on my list is first as Daredevil. Then moving on to Kingpin / Wilson Fisk. We got Vincent D'Onofrio, my boy D'Onofrio, who I absolutely love from Law and Order: Criminal Intent, Full Metal Jacket, a bunch of other movies that he's been in. But he really took the time and did the work to really embody Kingpin. He's got the size. He's got the really cool bald look to him. He's got the voice that he's been working on for years to get kind of like his Wilson Fisk voice. He just knocks it out of the park. He's fantastic as a Kingpin, so I have to put him at number one. And then number two, Michael Clark Duncan, who gives him his best shot at it for the time that it was. Rest in peace to him. He's a tremendous actor. Love him in The Green Mile. And then, of course, this movie is another big one that I remember him from. But Vincent D'Onofrio definitely embodies, what Kingpin should be on screen. Three, we got Bullseye. Um, Wilson Bethel, who plays him in the Netflix series, I believe it was season 3 of the Netflix series, and then he uh, eventually returns in the Disney Plus Daredevil Born Again series as well. He was really cool to watch. He really took the time to do the stunt work for it. I think the action involving his skill set with him never missing, kind of using everything around him to throw at a target and killing them was really cool. And then number 2, Colin Farrell. Love him, Colin Farrell. Oscar winning Colin Farrell. He's just too ridiculous in this movie with the peanut flicking into the old lady on the airport, with the darts, with the saying bullseye every time he throws at a target. He's just way over the top, really wacky, and it's just not what we wanted a bullseye. And I mainly blame that for the direction that he was given, and then the writing for the character in that film. So definitely the next Netflix version of Bullseye is number 1. And then finishing up, we have Elektra. Like I said previously in the show, Jennifer Garner is my number 1. I think she embodied Elektra the best. She really focused on the stunt work. She is a tremendous actress, and I love seeing her kind of flinging the little knives that she has around and kicking some ass. So, and then number 2, we have Lottie Young, I believe is how you say it. She shows up in the season 2 of the Netflix show. Well, she's great. She's got the comic accurate outfit. She really does cool stunts. I just really like what Jennifer Garner brings to the character, and then seeing her again in Deadpool and Wolverine reprising that role after all these years was really, really cool. So Jennifer Garner is my number 1 Elektra. I will be posting all of these on the social media pages for the podcast, so be on the lookout for those if you want to see them with your own eyes. But that's today's show. Like I said, the next couple episodes will be fill-in episodes with Gladiator and Gladiator 2. Gladiator is one of my favorite movies of all time, so I'm super excited to finally do this film on the podcast. And then when all 9 episodes of Daredevil Born Again air on Disney Plus, I will release my full review for that episode as well. So until next time, see you guys later.